Well, thank you again for joining us tonight. I'm Sam Carpenter. I'm Executive Director with the Hoosier Environmental Council, and we're super excited to share our first in a generation strategic plan. I'm just going to briefly go over the agenda with you tonight. I'm going to be joined by Tom Barrett. I am joined by Tom Barrett, our board chair. He's going to share some perspectives on the strategic plan from a board member's perspective and what it means for our organization. Juan Galeano is here with us as well, another board member. Juan and Tom both participated in our strategic planning committee. And then Marianne Holland who is our senior development director. She is going to talk some about the importance of being connected with this process and continuing that connection with the organization. And we're going to take some time to answer your questions. Anna White and Sarah are online with us as well, and they're kind of in the background helping us with our Q&A and technical things as well. So again, thank you so much for joining. Tom and Juan, do you want to come off screen here or come on screen and join us? And first, Tom, I'll ask you, tell me a little bit about kind of your perspective on, Hoosier Environmental Council engaging in the strategic plan and what it means for the organization.
Yeah, Sam, it's been an excellent strategic planning session. It's taken a while to get there. But what it creates for us, in my opinion, is it creates a sense of focus and guidance in the development of a path forward for our organization to build upon our historical achievements. I think the Hoosier Environmental Council, as long as I've been with it, has been viewed as the voice of the environmental issues in Indiana. We are very credible, I think, with all of our constituents, even those that disagree with us. We are pretty much science-based and fact-based.
And kind of what do you think it means in the context of the challenges today? We have challenges with environmental protections being um, rolled back federally. We're seeing that some of those actions might be taking place in the state level as well. I don't know, what does that mean to you in the context of the strategic plan, do you think?
Well, the state of Indiana, by the most recent U.S. News and World Report, ranks 50th in the nation on environmental issues. So we have a lot of opportunities. And I think this plan gives us clear direction, guidance, and priorities on where we'd like to go and help us develop the resources necessary in order to become as effective as possible, given the current environment.
Great, thank you, Tom. And Juan is a newer board member with Hoosier Environmental Council. Juan, tell us, I guess if I don't know, maybe briefly what kind of attracted you to Hoosier Environmental Council, and then if you could tell us a little bit about the plan, the process that we undertook.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm so glad to be with you today. I joined the Hoosier Environmental Council board about a year ago, and as a recent father, and someone who enjoys being outdoors, I'm just mindful that, Indiana doesn't have the best track record on environmental issues, and I want my daughter and uh, people growing up with her to be able to enjoy a nice environment here where we have chosen to live, and so just wanting that opportunity for her and seeing that HEC has been successful in advocating for some of these issues was something that inspired me. I'm not as familiar with environmental issues as some of my other colleagues are, but it's something I wanted to delve more deeply into, and I've gotten a chance to do that through this board and through the leadership of Sam. As far as the strategic planning process, it's been over a year-long process. It's very intentional outreach to different constituencies across the state, from more rural communities to different groups across the state that maybe aren't environmental issues aren't the first thing they work on, but just inevitably have to deal with things that come up on that. We had over 175 surveys that were submitted, collecting feedback from different partners, over 20 different thought leader interviews, and even a mapping of where other environmental organizations kind of do their work across the state. So as we think about what we might do in the future, where can we add value and leadership, and where can we be a convening partner? So it's been very thorough, it's been very deep, and I think um, it's been very intentional.
Great, thank you. Tom, you've been part of a few different strategic plans over years. How does this one compare to some others that you've been involved with?
Yeah, Kristen led this strategic plan, and so I've been involved as a business consultant on many strategic plans. This is by far and away the most thorough strategic plan that I've been involved in with all of the participants that we had. We had our board involved, we had our staff involved, we had thought leaders in the environment involved, we had nonprofit thought leaders involved. So as far as comprehensive, it's pretty amazing. I think we had over 300 people participate in this process. And I think we've covered all bases. And I guess to me, from a longer term perspective, we have this input. We're going to revisit the strategic plan periodically. We now have the input necessary to get started on this and continue to build and grow and develop the organization and build on our historical um, perspective.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think it was a big goal when we started. We wanted to get lots of input and we want people to have buy-in as well. We want them to feel connected to it, to the organization, our goals. Some of and Kristen uh, with Kristen Chuck-Moreland, who does consulting for folks on strategic planning, she has called us out as one of the groups that's gotten more input than she has ever been involved with our different mapping sessions, virtual kind of SWOT sessions, looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and so on. Also, we had a strategic planning committee that was made up of board and staff members. Juan and Tom were both on that, as well as Sarah and Marianne from the staff as well as other folks. And so we've gotten great participation even beyond that strategic planning committee. When we were doing surveys to get input from folks, there were some messages, not just surveys, discussions, conversations, sessions, uh, just kind of about the general environment that we're working in and the organization, what we bring to that. We got a few clear messages. One was that we really need to expand our partnerships and collaboration um, to be more impactful and thinking and looking more broadly to find shared interests with organizations that might be our typical partners uh, to move toward common goals. So that might be businesses, it might be universities, agriculture interests in rural communities, faith communities, environmental justice communities. Um, and so on. So that was one message that we heard. And also looking statewide, how can we get more statewide input and involvement? Another message that we heard very clearly was we need to communicate. Communication is a two-way street. We need to listen and understand where people are at and what issues are important to them. But we also need to communicate in a way that people understand the issues and relates to their daily lives. Um, Also thinking about, again, rural communities was a big part of the feedback. Also younger people, that age of 20 to 30 or so. Um, Another piece of feedback that we got is that we're in a strong position to be a convener, a leader, and a participant in coalitions. So we take that role very seriously, and we'll talk some more about that as we go through the plan. Um, Also, I want to clarify our focus and unify our messaging with members and partners to have greater impact and clearly show the impact of what we're doing in the work that we're doing in understandable terms. And then other feedback that we got is we need to broaden our funding base. Um, so Juan and Tom, I want to thank you both as members of the board more generally, for being part of this process. People were really engaged with it uh, within the organization as well as beyond. So thank you. Um, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the plan itself. Um, I'm going to bring up a presentation here, share my screen. Let's see. Oops. Okay. I think I have to share first. Okay. Um, Hopefully everybody can see my screen there. So starting off, we have a new vision statement for Indiana. Uh, Imagine an Indiana where everyone has abundant access to clean water, natural lands, pure air, and affordable clean energy. We want to start with a vision that everybody can relate to, connect to, and work toward. This is the vision that we have a 16-member staff, very dedicated, working toward this vision every day. Um, there are some things before I go into the fundamentals of the strategic plan. There are three things that really stand out. One is collaboration, also communication, and connection. We think with those three elements, that's going to add up to the change that we're looking for. Again, we talked about collaborating beyond our base of partnership, identifying common goals, and joining forces with people in more diverse sectors. That might be, again, business, university, rural communities. Also, we want to communicate closely with stakeholders, and also realizing that that communication is a two-way street. But we want to communicate in ways that people really connect with our mission. But we also want to give people concrete ways to connect. Um, and that might be through, being part of a, a group, or like hosting a house party around an event, or it might just be completing one of our action forms to tell legislators that you care about a certain issue. So there's lots of ways that we approach that. Um, Also, before I go into more detail, I'm going to share we have a new vision statement. We also have a new mission statement. Our mission statement is Hoosier Environmental Council leads and collaborates with diverse coalitions to achieve a healthy natural environment and thriving sustainable communities. One thing that I think is a prominent kind of false narrative out there is that there's a choice. It's a false choice between a clean, healthy environment and thriving communities that has economic, growth and prosperity and jobs for people. Um, we think to have a strong quality of life, we need to have both, and we see those strong communities being an important part of that. Um, in terms of values, these are the things that really guide how we do our work, what we approach, and how we approach it. Mitigating climate change. How do we minimize the impacts of climate change and invest in, transportation, energy, agriculture practices, land conservation that all can support mitigating climate change, but also reducing its impacts. Environmental justice and health. Um, Environmental justice is really about uh, for those communities that have been overburdened by poor environmental decisions, bad environmental impacts, making sure that their voices are giving fair and heard a place at the table in decision making for things that are going to impact their communities and not being overlooked and underserved. And the environmental health piece is just that there are so many negative environmental outcomes, health outcomes for people when we don't have adequate protection from industry and other things that cause pollution. Um, Nonpartisan commitment. We are a nonpartisan organization, and we work across uh, you know, the political spectrum to bring about the change that we're looking for. And stewardship for future generations, proactive learning. We want to be continually learning. I'm sorry, proactive innovation. We want to be continually learning and innovative in our approach. And if there are things that we can do we want to be very solution oriented. And so that is reflected in that value. Shared learning and collaboration and transparency and accountability. These are the values that we developed as a team. Um, we also have some overarching goals as an organization. And one of those is mitigating climate change and reducing the impacts of climate change. Another is environmental health and having better health outcomes in relation to our environment, and not to mention a healthy environment for its own sake. Environmental justice and thriving sustainable communities. And we do a lot of that work in three areas, land, water, and energy. And you'll see some of that referenced as we go on. Now, we have a dedicated group here tonight of people that are interested in the details. So I am going to go through some of the detail here. Um, and but then we'll have a good opportunity for, questions, Q&A later. Um, so our first goal is to and strengthen our influence on policy and decision makers, and mobilize communities to advance strong environmental policies and practices. So throughout our plan, we have goals, we have strategies, and we have tactics. So what I'm really going to go over with you now is the goals and the strategies, but each of those strategies is actually broken down into individual tactics that we will, as a team, as a staff, um, we will prioritize, we'll put timelines to, and we'll assign responsibility to. And I'll share some of those tactics as well. But the first strategy, expand partnership opportunities where goals and missions align with partners outside of our typical environmental sphere for broader representation and buy-in of goals. So a tactic might be, expand outreach to groups that represent business interests, universities, labor, agriculture, faith communities. Where can we find some common ground common interests to work together toward? And part of that starts with a shared concern, and then together we build our strategies. Another strategy is ensure the organization has the staff and resources to build relationships effectively. We want to allocate resources, especially to hiring and retaining staff, dedicated to community engagement. We're interested in further developing. We have some awesome volunteers with Hoosier Environmental Council, but we want to further develop that to get more ways for more people to get involved in meaningful ways. And that might involve dedicating new staff to that. Strategy 3, set long-term goals and lead strategic initiatives across HE's focus areas, land, water, and clean energy, prioritizing actions that activate climate resilience, environmental health, and environmental justice. So Hoosier Environmental Council has been very necessary that we defend and play defense on a lot of policies that have come down. But what we want to do is make sure we're being intentional about being proactive while also doing that defense. So we want to develop some policies, some best practices from that we can learn from other states, other places, and develop kind of like a resource library and position papers so that when the opportunity arises, we have those resources in place to act, as well as we are continuing to push those things kind of on a stair-step basis, so like a piece-by-piece basis. Strategy four, develop local strategies to influence policy and practice at city and county levels, in addition to state engagement. And there's a lot of opportunity of things that can happen at the county level as well. Our second goal is really around communication. So we talked first about collaboration, now communication. We want to communicate our mission, expand our reach, and foster deeper connection between Hoosiers and our work. We want people to feel connected to it. The first strategy is develop and engage our target audience with clear understanding of the likelihood of their involvement and value and the impact of their involvement. And we'll have in advancing our goals and our priorities. So it's kind of doing like some strategic analysis, not only of who our current audience is, but also who we need our current audience to be and how those people can help move forward our priorities. And how do we message to those folks? And how do we target them that will be a way that can be responsive? So, one tactic that we're doing is actually hiring a communications director, and we're already in the process of starting those interviews. To have somebody come in with a strong communications background that can help the organization. That's something that the organization hasn't had that kind of level of investment in communication before. Another strategy is have a more targeted approach to messaging across the state. Annually identify priorities and align communication to these broader priorities as part of a communication plan. So an annual communication plan that we'll create and message from, as well as continually evaluate and see how that is going. And fourth is strengthen and clarify brand identity to build trust and recognition across all our platforms. So when people see, Hoosier Environmental Council, here, Hoosier Environmental Council, we want there to be certain association of the value and kind of a trust relationship that they associate with that. We want them to know clearly and quickly, what we're about and what we do. And that's part of that idea about branding. Build equity into our work to support just policies that represent underserved community interests and benefit all Hoosiers. So the first strategy is when engaging with communities, we understand and support their priorities as they align with our mission and goals. So the first thing we need to do is understand where they are. And that, again, that communication is a two-way street. We want to understand their priorities and look for areas where we can work toward them. Hoosier Environmental Council probably gets 4 or 5 calls a month, maybe more than that, maybe 5 or 6, from community members or groups that are working on a particular issue. Often it's related to land use. It might be related to destruction of a wetland or a polluting industry. But we want to understand those communities, what their needs are and interests are, and see how we can work with them. Also, educate ourselves on sensitivity and history, definitions, and cultural nuances to better engage communities outside of our typical arena. So this could include, staff training related to better understanding systemic racism and its impact, cultural differences, different communication styles and work styles, and the value of varied perspective and backgrounds in our work. One thing that I'll say that as we went through this strategic planning process, we had a lot of different viewpoints, and we didn't just immediately come to a shared understanding and agreement. But through that different kind of diverse input and like perspectives, I feel like the plan and the mission and the vision all became much stronger. Um, Another area to develop that resource library on equity-focused environmental policies and case studies, successful efforts. Um, so strategy three, recruit and retain staff and board members that reflect the communities that we serve. Okay. Goal four, build effective coalitions with strategic representation from business, agriculture, faith, and community leaders and ensure diverse representation of Hoosier interests in building a shared vision and mission around key HEC priorities. So we talked already about coalitions. So you might think, well, why is he talking again about coalitions? Well, this is complemented about how can we work effectively in coalitions. Um, First strategy being make an intentional effort to energize coalition members, ensure long-term engagement while avoiding coalition fatigue. For example, um, focus on recruiting young and emerging leaders to build strong future coalitions. Provide coalition members with tangible opportunities to make significant contributions and recognize their work. Um, Celebrate successes and highlight the impact that coalition members can have. These are all tactics within this strategy. Strategy two is expanding coalitions to include non-traditional allies, and we covered that some already. Um, but we all have interests in clean water, pure air, affordable energy. And so there are a number of groups that we can connect with over these issues that can help move those things forward. Strategy three, find common ground and be willing to compromise while keeping values intact to build trust. So when we say compromise, we're not going to compromise what our goals are. We're not going to compromise our values, but what we can do is um, take incremental progress when we can make it. That means that we don't get everything we want. Um, it was an interesting, somebody asked a question, are we um, are we going to be moderate or activists? Um, and I think what we're going to do is be really practical about and strategic about how and where we can make progress. Um, in some cases, we might be described as activists. In some cases, we're just very, results-oriented collaborators. Um, Goal five. Develop a model of financial stability while significantly growing our team and our budget. Um, I have talked with, directors of environmental councils in other states, have, teams of 25, 30 people. I'm not saying that there's a particular number that we need to be, but I think there's an opportunity to bring resources and expertise to the organization. So one way we can do that is support donor-driven initiatives such as online fundraising, house parties, to support our fundraising efforts, closely connected to the donors' priorities, and find ways for people to engage or contribute, become a first-time contributor on an issue that they really care about. Strategy two is broaden individual donor base by creating opportunities for targeted giving to engage donors with specific priorities. Number three, increase giving among our current supporters. I think that as we share kind of our vision um, and lay out the strategic plan, how we want to accomplish that, as well as um, share progress, communicate that progress. I think that there are a number of people that have given to Hoosier Environmental Council for 10 years at the same level. And as we kind of can share what their investment, more clearly communicate what that investment has actually been relating to or doing, they might see a reason for giving more. Um, Establish an endowment to ensure long-term financial sustainability. Um, there's a lot of uncertainty around, federal, state funding for different programs. We don't get federal funding. We have done work on contracts around lead and asthma at the state level. Um, but we did actually apply for a grant federally that was then kind of taken away, but not one that we had actually been awarded. So as we think about growing our team, growing our impact and our budget, we feel more comfortable if we have something like an endowment to support that growth well into the future. Strategy 5 is expand the board to include more folks with a fundraising background and are comfortable with fundraising, and implement also uh, governance measures to ensure sound financial oversight. And our last strategy there is really to optimize the impact and stewardship of our entrusted funds. We need to continually be reviewing kind of our impact, our process, and how those funds are being used, and make sure they're being used uh, well with the donor's intent. So that is the kind of the details of our strategic plan. Again, as I shared before, there's quite a bit of um, additional tactics that are part of our plan and are going to continue on that will be part of that. Before we go into the Q&A, Marianne is going to come on and she's going to share about the importance of being connected and being involved with this and Hoosier Environmental Council. And then in addition, I just want to give everybody a heads up. We're going to put in a survey into the chat later. So we love to get feedback. And so we'll be putting that into the chat as well. And I talked about being connected and ways to connect on issues. And I'm going to give you one example of something that we're working on now and a little bit as well. So, but first I'm going to turn over to Marianne. Thanks, Marianne.
Thanks, Sam. Hi, everyone. It's been really fun looking at the attendees and kind of scrolling through the names and smiling when I saw familiar faces, which I see many tonight, but also new faces too. That's very exciting. So thanks for being here with us tonight. And I say that on behalf of myself and all of the HEC staff. It means so much to us that you guys show up for these kinds of things, because this is work that is close to our hearts. So when you come out and show us some love, we really appreciate it. So I'm going to talk about the strategic plan from the perspective of somebody who has been at the organization for quite a long time, and also talk about ways that you can continue to be involved in this work, specifically around the strategic plan. So I've been with HEC, I'm closing in on nearly 13 years now. So it's been long enough to see a lot of change. There are many of you on this webinar tonight, though, who can double or even triple that experience as donors and as activists. And that's a fact that by itself it's unique and incredible. Over the decades together, we've watched HEC take on everything from toxic waste threats, clean energy policy, grassroots campaigns in small towns, even going to do testimony at the State House and in Washington, D.C. And honestly, through it all, what's really kept us going, it's each other. So thank you. Because HEC has never been just about policy papers or legal battles, it's about building a movement, right? That's what the strategic plan really is all about. It's coming at a time that couldn't be needed more too. And it's our roadmap really to take that movement to the next level. Here's why it's exciting. This is a vision and it's a plan that matches the scale of our challenge, we all know that's big, right? It imagines an Indiana where everyone has abundant access to clean water, natural lands, pure air, and affordable clean energy. And that might sound broad, but that's kind of the whole point, right? It's inclusive. There's a role for everyone. So, whether you're a student with a passion for clean water, or you're a business owner looking to authentically go green, or just someone who likes hiking Indiana's beautiful trails, there's a place for you to plug in. So, how can you get involved going forward? First, show up. Congratulations, check mark. You've done that already tonight, and many, many of you for years as well. But showing up, what is it? That can be anything from attending a town hall meeting or joining us at the State House for Advocacy Days. You don't have to be a policy expert. We have those. We have quite a few of them, actually. And as Sam mentioned, we probably will be growing that as well. All you have to do is bring your passion. Second, speak up. Social media, sometimes it seems small, but your voice carries. So share what you care about. Educate your circles. Write a letter to the editor. Let your representatives know that you're paying attention too. Another thought, team up. We're growing our network of volunteers and local champions all over Indiana, as Sam talked about again. And you can help lead like a local campaign or join a committee. You could even start a green initiative in your own community with HEC serving as your support team. But last and not least, give what you can. Whether it's time, skills, donations, it all matters. Every hour you give, dollar you contribute will fuel this mission. The truth is that environmental progress in Indiana, we know it's never been easy. But if I've learned one thing in my time at HEC, it's that change happens when people connect. And this plan, this new chapter, it's all about creating stronger and deeper and more actionable connections around Indiana. So I guess I'm asking you tonight, probably on behalf of our whole staff, to not just care and not just cheer us on, but to be a part of this. This future that we're building, it's going to take a lot of us, and it's never been more needed than it is right now. So let's make a healthier Indiana, a more just Indiana, a more vibrant place to call home for everybody who lives here. I'll be reaching out. So I have everybody's names. I can't wait to reach out to you and ask for your participation in some donor advisory type things coming up. So thank you so much again. Thank you for allowing me to share a little bit about my perspective and some ways that you can get involved.
Thank you, Marianne. Marianne is our longest serving staff member, over 12 years with Hoosier Environmental Council. So has been a huge asset, and we really appreciate your dedication. And she was an important part of our strategic planning team as well. I want to invite people to put questions into the Q&A. We also have a chat feature. I think people can put things into the chat if you want to do that, which you can share with other participants. It looks like we've got about 45 folks on the webinar. And yeah, so the couple questions. Oh, one thing I did want to share before we go into the Q&A is this idea of connection. So Governor Braun has created a number of different executive orders, and Anna or Sarah, can you put this link into the chat, please, for our item comment period? So Indiana Department of Environmental Management has requested comments from business about how environmental regulation might be overburdensome to their kind of their financials to communities. And it's very much geared toward how are regulations going to be a burden on business. And what we want to make sure is clearly understood is that we need environmental protection. So we've created some resources to put to comment to item during their comment period. It goes through the end of the month, the 30th, so through Monday. An item has requested comments on a number of different executive orders. Things like, you know, um, wetlands will be up for review. The wetlands protection will be up for review about this process. So I just want to encourage folks to put that to click on that link, and what we try to do is make it easy for you and understandable how to comment on some of these things. So I encourage you to do that. Um, so some of the questions that we've received is how can you involve young families? We had a number of good questions that came in ahead of time. Um, and one thing that we can do is make our actions easy and relatable. Education on why these issues are important and how they impact their lives. Again, it's about kind of making that personal connection. Um, Also, I know a lot of people care about different issues. Some people are very passionate about wetlands. We have people passionate about PFAS, CAFOs, microplastics and plastics, data centers, air quality permits for industry, uh, land use issues around new development, coal ash along Lake Michigan and Ohio River. So there's all kinds of things that we are working on as an organization and that you, as people connected with us, really care about. And so all those things fall into having, clean water, pure air, natural lands, and affordable clean energy. And what we're going to try to do is get a sense of where our partners are, where we can make progress. We're going to have resources available on how we can address some of those things. It is true that we have some limits on being able to address everything at once. But so that's why we have to prioritize some, but we appreciate hearing that feedback from you. Let's see. Another question put in here was, how do you envision a collaboration with other smaller Indiana environmental nonprofits working at a practical level? Um, Marianne kind of spoke to that on the on getting involved in your community, starting a group. You can invite Hoosier Environmental Council to come and speak with your group, maybe about an issue. We also try to put resources on our website as well as be a resource in other areas. So, and I realize I'm doing a lot of talking here. If any of the other panelists have any questions that they want to answer or respond to, feel free to come on and do that. Um, but, Marianne talked about bringing your passion. It's really that's so critical, is having a champion around a different particular issue and gathering people. And I think it's also important to do this with others and in community to support one another and make those connections. We have a comment, very excited to see this energy around organizing and movement around such a mountain of a problem protecting our environment. Do you have a PDF of the plan? Let's see. Can we put a link to our strategic plan uh, into the chat? And actually, we do have a PDF. I don't know, Sarah or Anna, if you have a link to that, because I think there was a PDF of the plan on our website that people could link to. And yeah, so you can put that in there. We have a question. There's at least 21 noteworthy plastic manufacturing companies in Indiana. According to several sources, there are microplastics in our rivers, streams, lakes, soil, and air. Yes. Several states have laws that reduce or eliminate plastic bags. Indiana has a law which bans the banning of plastic bags. Yes. I would like to join with other concerned individuals to help eliminate plastic bags in Indiana with a long-term goal of eliminating the use of plastic. So we were pleased so one of our board members who's actually outgoing, she's actually starting an organization that is focused on plastic and the issue of microplastic. So we'd love to connect you with her. It's Dr. Julie Peller from Valpo University, and she's actually becoming pretty renowned in this area. And we're planning to do a webinar with her on this issue later. And she did help one of the legislators put forward a bill to reduce the use of plastics. Um, and so that is an issue that, there's these emerging contaminants. So plastic PFAS and being two separate things, but they're omnipresent. So there was quite a bit of legislation around PFAS, several good bills, and one bad bill that got stopped. Um, that, and we did some webinars and work around that area too. So those are all things that we want to be focusing on supporting, but maybe we can make that connection with Dr. Peller as well. How do you envision, oh, let's see. And to my team, if I answer a question, if you put it over into the answered section, that would be awesome. That way I will know not to try to answer it again. Somebody did ask a question, how much money is required to begin an endowment? Um, that's something we need to explore. And then that is something that we want to do some work with, a consultant, somebody, we as a organization don't have that internal knowledge. And so it's something that we want to explore. The organization has, or Marianne, you came on, so why don't you go ahead?
Oh, I just wanted to jump on and say that I thought that that was a really helpful and important question. And like, it's not a one size fits all, certainly. And we, have to, like Sam said, have to bring on others to help us come determine that. But certainly what I want to do is actually invite anybody who's in here tonight who has had experience working on these to like reach out and communicate with us and help us start that initiative. So, it's always amazing what talents and treasures lie within any given group. So I'll bet we have somebody here who's been involved with the establishment of an endowment and would like to help us out. So just message me and we'll connect.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, Also, there's a question about how we can be transparent about our finances. Well, any nonprofit organization does have their finances listed online through their 990. And so you can always see finances that way. And also, I do think that we want to be transparent and accountable. And so that's probably something that we should think about among our tactics of having something like an annual report where we also have our finances. And the other thing that we want to do is we want to report on our progress of our strategic plan, and we want to share that with you.
Sam, I'd like to jump in on that one just a little
Yeah,
bit as well, because I commented there too. I would like to say that like anything that anybody would like to see is pretty much accessible now to reach out to me. But I think that maybe it's been a function of not having the kinds of volume of communication resources that we are ramping up to have. And so I think, while anything's ever been available upon request, coming up, using those resources to help get more online proactively, so that people have that sense of trust and transparency up front. It's a great point that the commenter is making.
yeah. A question that came in online before was, it seems HE's focus on working with the legislature has diminished. Why is that? I don't think that's accurate. Really, a big part of our strategic plan is how do we build our influence on policy outcomes, and and part of that is having a presence at the State House, and having conversations with legislators, and building those coalitions with non-traditional partners, and developing a proactive strategy in addition to that defense that we talked about. So I think that's very much important. The other thing that we really invest a lot of time in is our bill watch and those bill updates and sharing different actions with the folks. So that is something that we definitely invest in value in. Um, what can we do to make lawmakers aware of costs of eco injustice? That was another one submitted beforehand. And I think, having a tour of a community, meeting with folks in the community, understanding the impacts. There was just an article in the Mirror, Indy Mirror, about the near West Side and the impacts of legacy pollution and industry and the health outcomes associated with that. So that is something uh, that as people, I think, have that interaction with people, they begin to understand that more. I know Paula on our staff has done a number of different environmental justice kind of related tours with folks to help them understand what's going on in communities. And I think that's a really good way to kind of raise that awareness. Let's see. What can we do apart from donating, other volunteer opportunities? So one is respond to these calls to action that we do. Um, a phone call to a elected official is often even better than our form. The form that we do is what we try to do is we make it easy. But the but a phone call to your legislator can also be impactful. The more personalized it is to you, the better. So that's one thing. Host an issue-focused house party or forum with Hoosier Environmental Council. We'd love to join you on that. Follow us on social media. Marianne mentioned that before. Uh, Invite us to a meeting and your friends with your elected officials. We'd love to join you and talk about issues that are important to you. So there's a different ways of getting involved. Talk about these issues. If you're signed up for our newsletter and read that, you'll see a lot of different things that are going on. How will HEC cultivate sustainability voters? We did actually do a voter registration drive in the last election cycle, just getting out the importance of participating and being registered to vote. Um, Sharing the importance of issues in alignment with our priorities and making that relatable. Um, and we do have a lot of restrictions as a 501c3 on getting directly involved with candidates and campaigns and that sort of thing. But it is actually one of our tactics is to review the C4, the PAC approach, and having an aligned, separate but aligned organization where we might be more impactful in that way. Um, Can you go into greater detail on the mapping exercise of environmental nonprofits? I'm specifically curious about notable gaps that were identified and what places were well or overly covered. I think that's a question in reference to some of our initial survey work that we did. And so that is something that we can look up and try to share. There are a number of different environmental organizations doing work, good work, and we work closely in collaboration with them. And so I think, um, I always say the environment's a big issue, right? It covers a lot of areas. But, we have groups that are doing land trusts and conservation of natural lands. We have groups that are focused on the White River and water quality and managing that. We have groups that are focused more on younger people and getting them involved, even at the high school and grade school level. Um, we have national groups that are active here with Indiana chapters. So there is quite a bit happening there. And I'd have to look back at some other information to see what those where shortfalls might be. Oh, Anna would like to answer this question live. Anna, did you want to answer that question?
Nope, sorry, that's just a way for me to say that we've answered the question live, and then when I hit end, it goes away, so you don't
Gotcha.
see it anymore.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you. Um, Practicality and collaboration are great, but they are useful if HEC has a seat at the table of decision makers. How does the strategic plan move HEC to the front row at the table? Well, this is what we're focused on is one is we want to be very solutions oriented, and we're continually having these meetings with decision makers. And when I say decision makers, I mean people who are policymakers or might be in the business community that are doing big investments in the state and the community. Um, so we continue to build those relationships, but also by working, expanding our coalition, that gives us a better seat at the table as well. If you're, what is it? If you're not on the table at the table, you're on the menu. So we want to avoid that. Um, let's see. Okay. Um, let's see. I'll do one more question here that we had brought in. How will this bring Hoosier Environmental Council into mainstream conversation? So I think not only bringing Hoosier Environmental Council, but the issues that we think are so important. Again, one of the things that we really want to focus on is this communication. One is listening, understanding, but also we're in the process of hiring a communications director to bring in some of that expertise. Um, and the idea of building out more of a volunteer base and a more of a volunteer program. Right now, if we said we wanted, you know, I feel like we could attract a lot of volunteers, but we want to make sure that we have meaningful ways for people to get engaged before we really put that call out. And so that is one area that we want to invest in to develop a volunteer program to really get people engaged in their communities, and finding a model that's replicable for others as well. Um, we have reached very close to the end of our time. It looks like we got a couple more minutes. If you have time. In what way is HEC connecting on issues of climate anxiety and bolstering public hope during a challenging time politically? Um, I think that's a real important issue. Like the thing that we need to be very mindful of is offering solutions and showing progress. Anything that we do on climate change um, has an impact. And there is a lot of progress that is happening. There's an energy transition that is happening towards electrification of our home and transportation, and clean energy sources that are now cheaper, faster, and better than their fossil fuel counterparts. There's so much growth that is happening in that area. So the thing that I think the way to avoid climate anxiety and is to get engaged on the issues that you care about. As you get engaged, you also learn about the progress that is being made. So that's kind of how I approach it, and so what we try to do is continue to uh, share that progress. One thing I forgot to do, if we could put the survey into the chat. Do we have our survey? We would appreciate your feedback. We always like to get feedback um, about our sessions. And so, yeah, Sarah, just put the survey. If you would take a moment, you can click on that link. It'll bring up the survey. Honestly, it takes less than 5 minutes to fill it out, but we'd like to hear from you about what you think and how you do. Um, what you think about not only the strategic plan, but how we share our information with you. There will be a link that will go out to participants after tonight that will have a link to a recording as well as some of the resources that were requested. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, for being so dedicated. I think it's awesome that we got so many people interested in kind of this really detailed planning effort, that really shows a level of interest and dedication to these issues, and we so appreciate the support that we get from our supporters and people who are active on these issues as well. So, thank you so much. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Bye bye.